Welcome to today's webinar. As a global consulting firm, Protiviti is here to help you connect, grow, succeed. We invite you to visit us online at protiviti.com/webinars to find other great content and subscribe. Now, let's begin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Ready for Launch, Getting Healthcare Organizations to Copilot from Microsoft 365. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. Audio will be streamed through your computer. We recommend using Edge or Google Chrome as your web browser. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webcast, please let us know via the Q&A window. We encourage you to submit questions throughout today's webinar using the Q&A window. We will address as many questions as possible after the presentation. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing. The recording link along with the presentation slides will be emailed to you after today's webinar. Also, in your webinar console, you'll see a thumbs up icon in the bottom right. With this, you can interact with us during the presentation by liking a slide or a point that one of our presenters makes. For those of you who are not familiar with Protiviti, we are a global consulting firm that delivers deep expertise and a tailored approach to help leaders confidently face the future. We provide consulting and managed services to our clients around the world. Protiviti is also a Microsoft AI Cloud Solutions partner with a global team of certified experts and Microsoft MVPs. We provide award-winning innovative solutions with expertise in all Microsoft technologies. Specifically for today's topic, we are a member of the Copilot Jumpstart program, providing clients extra funding options for adoption and change management, as well as key thought leadership and product information from Microsoft. More information on our Microsoft solutions can be found in your resource window. We have a great panel of presenters here with us today. Jody Casey is a managing director at Protiviti and has over 24 years of healthcare industry expertise. Prior to Protiviti, Jody held the position of Global Consulting Practice Leader for Healthcare Services at Microsoft. Corey Harrison is a Managing Director in Protiviti's Microsoft Services practice and has over 28 years of experience with expertise in Microsoft 365, Copilot, security, and data protection. Brian Perino is a Director in Protiviti's Microsoft practice, specializing in helping clients maximize value from Copilot for Microsoft 365. Aaron Comans is the Microsoft 365 product owner at Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. I am Julia Marple, and I will be moderating today's session. We have a packed agenda today where we will discuss how Copilot from Microsoft 365 is increasing efficiency and productivity in the healthcare industry. We will discuss capabilities of Copilot from Microsoft 365 and provide a demonstration. We'll also discuss how to leverage Microsoft's tools to securely launch Copilot in your organization. And we'll hear a first-hand customer story of how Blue Cross Blue Shield Association is working to securely prepare for deployment of Copilot for Microsoft 365 while still meeting their compliance and regulations. Now I'll turn it over to Jody to discuss recent challenges in the healthcare industry.
Thank you, Julia. I want to start by talking about some of the headwinds our industry is facing. Demand is at its highest. We have a huge aging population, and people are living longer, and chronic disease is at an all-time high. Meanwhile, staffing levels, especially in the provider space, are at their lowest due to skilled labor shortages and really unmanageable workloads being a top reason why people are leaving the industry. And that leads me to talk more about workforce burnout. Nurses and our skilled labor force and doctors are burned out. They're not working at top of license, and they're overcome with administrative burden. Next, the regulatory landscape and pricing pressure continues to change and is always in flux, which makes, our industry very challenging. And then there's an unprecedented volume of data coming from the healthcare industry. In fact, one of the numbers that I recently researched was that 30% of the world's data is generated through the healthcare industry. And then last but not least, there's massive industry consolidation, causing challenges around disparate systems and organization across our healthcare companies. However, it's a really exciting time to be in healthcare too. I think it's a very pivotal time with AI. And for every dollar that a company invests in AI, the research is showing that they are realizing an average return of about $3.50 on every dollar invested. And the average time it takes for organizations to realize a return is less than 14 months. So although we are facing a lot of challenges as an industry, it is a very exciting time to be part of the healthcare industry with all the technological advances. So I wanted to talk through a few of the use cases. There are so many for Copilot. So I just wanted to highlight a couple here for the payer industry. The way that we're seeing our clients use Copilot is updating surveys, coordinating market research, analyzing resolution letters, denial letters, insights into analyzing business results and finding those much quicker than we have in the past, quality audits, onboarding documentation, job description updates. So lots of HR benefits here. Updating training materials, corporate communications, open enrollment communications, automating vendor assessments, trend reports, streamlining benefits and compensation, and the list goes on. I didn't even mention all of the benefits for healthcare professionals on this slide, but there are so many. Summarizing messages and patient data for doctors, a lot of information that nurses are able to use and access more at their fingertips. So again, we are really excited about all the potential for Copilot for M365. Next, I'm just going to talk about a couple of use cases. I didn't want to talk about any IT personas with you all. I wanted to talk about business personas so that you all can see that you don't have to pilot Copilot with IT professionals in your organizations. You can do it across your business units, your clinical units, and elsewhere. So one example would be coordinating market research. This allows for our analysts to draft faster, reduce the cost per lead, and capture action items very quickly. Integrating Copilot into our daily work, I think, will very soon be the same as how we integrate email and Teams. We'll be so used to running Copilot in the background, it'll just become the part of the fabric of our everyday lives. So in this example, running Copilot in Word helps define the objective, and then really running Copilot in Teams around the meetings captures all the action items. So when I meet with my manager, give them an update, I can run Copilot in the background and have everything summarized very quickly and go back and refer to my notes. I can discover new market trends, selecting the right prompts in Excel. I can communicate the results by transferring all of this into a new email prompt, present the findings in PowerPoint, and then create a completed snapshot in Copilot for Word. That's just one quick example on market research. The second one is an HR example, streamlining benefits and compensation. Copilot helps with conducting market research, drafting the executive summary for talent planning, in ensuring retention and employee satisfaction, leveraging these models to make rapid updates to the financial model for Copilot, and then having Copilot document action items when the meeting is over. Communicating to department managers in Outlook, Copilot can make messages more succinct. They can help us with the tone. It's really amazing how well Copilot can work in the background of your communication style. Revising policy documents is another way that it can help in streamlining benefits and compensation. And last but not least, incorporating changes into the HR strategy overall via PowerPoint. And then I just wanted to highlight a day in the life of an analyst. This came from one of our clients as an example, looking at a new product. Hillary, our sample client here, who is the analyst, was able to leverage Copilot in Excel and then filter out a lot of the features that she wanted to prioritize, so that she could prioritize the better features. She summarized the meeting with her manager in Copilot for Teams, and she was able to run Copilot to do some due diligence and reporting, as well as in Excel, back again in Teams, and then last but not least, in PowerPoint. And all of this happened for Hillary before 11 a.m. So the productivity gains are pretty significant. So I wanted to turn it over to Julia to talk about our next poll.
Awesome. So our first polling question is, what challenge are you looking for Copilot to solve the most? We have several options here, and we are asking you to choose the one that you would want the most. So you might have to scroll down to see all the options. Jody, when you talk to your healthcare clients, what kind of challenges are they talking about?
Yeah, I mean, so from a payer perspective, I think the consolidation in the industry is challenging for all of our payers. I think, the disparate systems, the technical debt that comes with a lot of that consolidation is challenging. Everyone's concerned about cybersecurity. We as a company feel like there should definitely be a Copilot and AI governance plan before launching any of this. So a lot of our clients are very concerned about the cybersecurity threats that continue to happen in the industry. I mentioned technical debt and the disparate systems. I think for the provider space, top of life, having our physicians and skilled workforce work at the top of their license, not working 20 hours a week in administrative tasks, but being able to focus on the patient, I think is definitely a challenge for the provider industry as well. So those are just a couple of the things that we hear from our clients.
All right, so let's see the results.
Operational workflow optimization is a high one, not surprising. Insights into analyzing business results. I think this is a huge benefit of Copilot that we at Protiviti are already using today. Some self-service for call centers. I think that is probably going to be Copilot 2.0 as we start to, after leveraging the benefits of M365, then Copilot for D365 is also an opportunity. Provider analysis. This makes a lot of sense. Corey, did you have something to add here?
Yeah, I would say, hi, everyone. This is Corey Harrison. I would say what I found interesting is the improved employee experience is one that I think is going to continue to grow higher and higher. The younger generation is not only comfortable with these tools, they're more and more going to expect to have them. And the operational workflow optimization may be something that leadership is focused on. That's where the return of investment comes from. But when you're talking about keeping a culture, the happiness of your people, retention of junior staff and moving up, anything with new technology, the younger generation, and this has gone on for 30 years and 40 years probably, they want to see that in the companies they work for. And this is going to be, and this is absolutely going to be part of it. So I think that one is a number that's going to grow over time about retention of people. They're going to be happy that you provide them these tools.
Great. And Corey, I think you are now going to provide an overview of Copilot.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining. So I want to make sure that we level set a little bit on Copilot. This image, I think, is a really interesting image. I do not think we're going to go over it. But when we send this out, you'll have it. You think of Copilot, and when you're asked, it's a brand of AI tools. It's not one thing. We are going on this call to demo and talk specifically about Copilot for Microsoft 365, but there are many, and we'll discuss that there's many different types of Copilots. The way Microsoft looks at it, there's going to be Copilot for your operating systems. Your developers are going to use them. Business applications such as Dynamics and Links, those are important. And modern work is M365, and the others as well. And each one of those, as you get away from the high level, there's different tools specifically that AI is going to be integrated with. And within each of those, you get different functionalities that you can build off of and new capabilities. But they're not in silos. We are already starting to see opportunities to combine and connect these different applications and these different stages into a more, as everyone said, operations efficiency is the priority, or the over 50%. Well, it's not just within SharePoint Online, or it's not just within M365, or just in Dynamics. It is a tool that's going to integrate them across these applications. And that's the promise of Copilot. You will always look at Gen AI. You think of Gen AI, that's a development application, usually in Azure, at least on the Microsoft side, Azure custom development, machine learning, and AI development for that. Copilot is a different beast. And right now, it's much more of an operational support tool. But what Microsoft released at the Build conference a few weeks ago, what they announced is coming, what those of us who partner with Microsoft hears about, knows that's gonna blend. You know, in the same way, for those of you who have as much of experience maybe as I do, back when we started working with SharePoint in 2003 or 2007, and we were using SharePoint Designer, or we were using custom developers to build workflows. I need a custom dev to build the workflows that now our junior employees, a couple years out of college, are building using Power Platform and low code. And I think Copilot, you have to think of it that way, that it's going to grow to being able to build low code Gen AI solutions. That's the direction we're going. I wouldn't say that's all there right now. So just to give you an idea, so then Copilot for M365. So the key thing you want to look at this, and this is where the security really comes in. Copilot for M365 utilizes content that's stored within your M365 tenant. Yes, when you're doing search, you can incorporate that with some general Bing Copilot search. You can get information from the internet, but it's not indexing that. It's going out and pulling that information down. So when we talk about security, when we talk about the concerns and the tools, it is really you should feel confident. And if you're not, that's why you're here, that the content that you have access to, that your employees, your team members are using the large language models, they're asking questions, it's coming on content within your tenant. And that when you're going through and it's building, the models it's building, the lessons Copilot Index is getting better at answering your questions, is built on your content. And the tools are within your organization. So there's a lot of security to lock it down. It's important to know. Now, on the right, 67% of adoptions find that it saved them time. This goes back to an ROI question that always comes up. From the days of, yes, I started working with SharePoint in 2003. There was an ROI conversation there as well. The ROI on internal operations tools are usually just about time savings. And I can tell you that for $30 a month, this is the challenge. It's $30 a month per user. Those of us that use it exceed that astronomically, because $30 a month of our time is not much. And so you get that. The challenge you're going to have as an organization is how can you do that at scale? If I have 1,000 licenses, if I have 10,000 licenses, how at scale is it helping? So the individual is easy to see. It's the enterprise is hard, and we're here to help with that. Okay, real quickly. So because I said there's a lot of other copilots, because you might hear these questions, and you may be asked these questions. Copilot for M365, I already mentioned what that is. Copilot for sales is really integrating with traditionally your CRM systems. Most of it would be on the dynamic side. Copilot for service. So this is something that we're actually, this is also within M365 quite a bit. This is something that we're really excited about. It's a service desk. Emails are coming in. AI is reading it. It routes it. You are able to build Copilot agents so that the person working on the email can use their questions to pull back information quickly at an FAQ. We're able to connect it to other data services using Copilot Studio, which is the next piece you see here. So they're very integrated. Copilot Studio originally came about for building bots, so chat bots, but it's becoming a lot more than that, where you still be able to do a chat bot. You're still able to quickly, with low code, be able to provide your user base with Q&A. You're able to integrate it with Copilot for service, and you're able to also now integrate it and search with external databases. So we're doing work searching internally within our environment. So we have in healthcare, we have an example of a pharmaceutical database with a bunch of pharmaceutical drugs. It is not unique to any client. It's a drug database that you could probably purchase. Just understand it. Being able to allow users to use Copilot Studio to connect to that information, to find more information about drugs, to pull it up. In that sense, you would say, isn't that search? Yes, there are some of it. It is going to be an enhanced search tool that is going to increase productivity. And so that's part of that. And then real quickly, there's mobile devices. How do you get to Copilot? If you're not using it yet, it works great on your phone. It works great on your tablet. The applications are there, emails there, Teams are there. So it really is a mobile tool. Lastly, before I move on, so these are some common questions that we get a lot. How accurate is Copilot 365? It's like every time you ask a question, you're going to see on the top from Microsoft it says this answer was developed by AI. Please verify its accuracy. So I think it's better if you're using content within your organization. It's probably a little bit better than if you're just going to the public website and searching for it. But it's still something that you'd always want to. It's important to let them know that it's not the end result. I wouldn't use that to give you answers about drugs. I would, from the drug database, but it might be good as a starting point. Where does it get responses? I discuss it. It's all about content within your tenant. Languages, it does support a number of languages. I think one of the, and so it's getting faster and faster with translation services. Microsoft just announced a new Microsoft Surface laptop, Copilot. They just released it this summer, actually a few days ago. One of the advantages with that, and this is not an enterprise, but you can use Copilot when you're doing a Teams meeting with someone overseas. It will do real-time translation from these languages to English and vice versa, which is really powerful. Microsoft owns content. You have to feel confident, and there's a lot of information about Microsoft on it, that if your users are running Copilot questions on your content, and Copilot is giving the answers, that information, those answers, that IP you have is not going back up to Microsoft and training their model. That is a key. I think that has been something that Microsoft has stressed significantly, and I think it's very important, especially in the healthcare industry. All right, with that, one question here. All right, so we're going to go from here. We're going to pass it to my partner, Brian, who's going to do a little demo for you on
Great.
M365 Copilot.
Great. Thanks, Corey. And I want to reiterate a point Jody said earlier, about in the future, Copilot, we will be working in the background, right? Well, I'm already there. I use Copilot probably 20 times a day. And the reason I do is I honestly feel like it gives me business superpowers. It's transformed the way I do work. And oftentimes my first thought is, well, how do I start this task with Copilot, right? It's really transformed it. And it's helped me get much more efficient. And so we're going to do a demo today. And demos are always exciting because anything can happen in them. But we are going to create a white paper and a presentation in about 7 to 8 minutes on generative AI in the healthcare industry, right? And so you can see my screen. The first thing to know is there's multiple ways to access Copilot. I can access it up here in this Word document. I could click this button, and I can also press Alt-I or AI because Microsoft is being clever. But I'm going to start here. And I want to draft a document. And I have a prompt ready to go, but we're going to assume the persona of a chief technology officer and write me a 2-page white paper on the impact of generative AI, impact of, let me add this, generative AI in the healthcare industry over the next 5 years, focus on healthcare payers and payees, and utilize healthcare industry terminology throughout the paper. Now, prompting is a skill, and it's a skill that we all need to continue to develop. But within this prompt, I'm giving it a goal. I am giving it context of who I am. I'm the CTO. I'm giving it expectations of use healthcare terminology. And I also have the ability to give it a source, where I can reference a file. I can say, look at these 3 documents and create this for me. But we're just going to generate a paper here in all of 30 seconds. Now, I'll add that I would never turn in a AI-generated paper as my own work. But what I do use it for is a starting point. of things to think about. And from here, I would tailor it, right? And so it's coming up with the introduction, impact on healthcare payers, impact on healthcare payees, challenges and opportunities. It'll finish up here in a second. But this is how I get started, right? And even sometimes just having a structure, an outline helps me, and I'll iterate off of this. And so it's about finished up here. Generative AI also might offer many opportunities, advantage, etc. Now, as it finishes, I'm thinking, there's another section I actually want to create. Let's come up with best practices and recommendations. You'll notice I said create a 2-page white paper. It's creating like a 3.5 page. So I could go back and say shorten this. I could say lengthen it. I could say use a more formal tone. I can do all kinds of different stylistic things to it. It's finishing a conclusion. But right now I'm thinking, all right, I like this. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to hit this Copilot button again, and I have a prompt written already. I'm going to say add a section titled AI Risks in Healthcare and create a table that lists 5 risks, impacts, and mitigation strategies. So I could do here, and it's going to regenerate this paper. Or actually, it's just going to add it right here. And so it's going to add a new section. And so this is how I kind of iterate off this document. Now I have a document saved already, which the same type of content. And it's saved on my computer. I'm going to use this copy link because I want to turn this paper into a presentation. As I was messing around with this paper, I did a trial run and I created this paper as a rock opera just for kicks. But I want to show you how quickly it is. We spent about 2 minutes generating this paper. And now I want to turn this paper into a presentation, maybe to present to my CEO. So I'm simply going to be in PowerPoint, create a presentation from File. And it's going to give me this prompt. And I'm just going to paste that link that I just copied into it. And now it will create, taking this 4-page paper, and we'll create a new presentation on it. I'm going to flip back into it as this works through, because one way I use this is say, all right, I'm writing this paper. Now, my boss might have a question on me. So I'm going to hit this Copilot, and I'm going to go back to this prompt. I'm going to say, help me prepare for a meeting with the CEO. Please create a list of 5 to 10 questions he or she might have about this white paper, right? And so this is how I iterate off of this, because I'm thinking, all right, I have this. Once I'm done, I have a point of view. If someone's reading this fresh, what might they ask me about it, right? And it's going to come up with questions to help me prepare for my next meeting. So that's another way to use it, just to be able to say, what will people want to know about this document? I bet our presentation is just about done. So it creates an outline for me, right? The impact of Gen AI in the healthcare industry, for payers, for payees, and comes up with an agenda. One of the things I can do here is say, all right, well, this is a nice agenda slide, but add a graphic to this slide that has a medical theme, right? And I can just start iterating off this deck right away. And in here, I can use Designer, which works really well with the Copilot, to just transform my slides and generate ideas. So the impact, and I can make my slides look pretty nice in minutes. And all of this is kind of using Microsoft stock capabilities. And so now within the last 6 minutes, I've created new content and a short presentation that I can present to my stakeholders. I might add another graphic here. And because I think this presentation is a little bit boring, I'm going to go back into Copilot and say, add a slide at the end that has a dad joke about a doctor. And let's see what it comes up with. It will come up with a different joke every time. So let's see if it's why did the tomato turn red? I did not like that joke. It is not a doctor joke. So I would say I could give it thumbs down and said not related to doctors. Submit. Add a, of course, add a new slide with a joke about the medical industry. And so I can keep iterating off of this document. Let's see if it gives us something. If it's funny, please feel free to use some medical jargon, what you call a doctor's vocabulary, thesaurus. Not sure if it's funny. In practice, it gave me why does a doctor carry a red pen? Because they might have to draw blood. So that was the joke I was hoping I was getting, but that's not that's not where our live demo ended up. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Aaron, who's going to, talk about a customer success story.
Thank you so much. So, hi everyone. I am Erin Commons. I work for Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. I've been in the IT industry for something like 30 odd years now, and it's been quite an adventure over the years. At the moment, I am Technical Solutions Director and Microsoft 365 Product Owner for the association. And so we've been tasked really with starting to tackle what we need to do with generative AI. And one of the first things that we looked at, of course, was the productivity use case, because it's relatively easy to see how transformational generative AI is going to be for the average employee for their day-to-day. And so we started this last year before Copilot for Microsoft 365 was out yet. And so we could have taken the tactic to wait until Copilot for 365 was ready. But we chose instead to get started with Copilot for Bing Chat. So Copilot for Bing Chat is a great tool, but it's not grounded in any of your data that you have today in Microsoft 365. But we wanted to move forward with it because it allows our employees to get some practice in prompt engineering. You can use Copilot for Bing Chat in order to search anything off the public net, right? And put together information based around any information that's available on the public net. And it's a great way of getting your feet wet, right, when you're getting started with generative AI. Because, of course, there are all sorts of wonderful security challenges that we all need to tackle when we begin to look forward at Copilot for 365. One of the big challenges, I'm sure you're all facing this one as well, is that Copilot makes it really easy to find information in our environment. And of course, if anyone was really still depending upon security via obscurity, that people just didn't know where to find something, well, Copilot makes that a lot easier to deal with. And so, we've been looking at our environment and making some determinations over, do we really have an oversharing problem? Or is this, just a myth that we need to worry about? And so we've been looking at our data governance structures. We've been looking at labeling policies. We've been looking at the landscape of what the scope of our controls are to figure out, what we need to do in order to go forward with this. And we're very, very, very close. I've got about 45 users in it right now. We're going to open up to the next 100 users on July 8th. And then we're hoping to bring it to the entire association at the end of July. when we've completed our remediation work that we've been working on in order to get there. And, you know, it really is completely transformational for what you can do with it. Copilot for 365, of course, works on graph-grounded data. So that's all the information that you have available to you in your Microsoft 365 environment. And so, yes, of course, you can extend Copilot to look at non-Microsoft 365 data. I'm not going there yet. I want to get really practiced in the vanilla version of this before we start looking to do any forms of expansion. And what you can do is amazing. Everything from having the AI take all of your notes, catch all of your follow-up items, catch you up when you've been out of office on vacation, create materials for you, as we saw with that Brian was presenting. And you can even use it in order to help you analyze Excel and create instant dashboards. So the promise there is incredible. And we're really looking forward to moving further and getting it out to the rest of our community. And with
Erin,
that,
we did have a question during registration, if you'd like to chat about that for a second. What has been the difference between Copilot for Microsoft 365 and Bing Chat?
well, as I mentioned earlier, Copilot for Bing Chat allows you to work with the AI based only on data that's available on the public internet. So it doesn't have access to anything that you currently have in your Microsoft 365 tenants. Now, Bing Chat did recently introduce the ability to upload a file using Copilot for Bing Chat, which is, you know, great, but it can't do any finding for you. So it's not really going to give you some of that capability, and it's not embedded in any of the Office products. That's what we get with Copilot from Microsoft 365. Once you turn on that license, you will see Copilots light up everywhere in your environment. You will have Copilot in Excel and Copilot in Word and Copilot in Outlook and in OneNote. You'll even get Copilot showing up in Teams and in Stream to make your life simpler and easier in order to work with those particular tools.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, Erin, for sharing your experience. I think it'll really help everyone on the call. Our second polling question is, what is your biggest concern with launching and adopting Copilot? This is a multi-select question, so you can select multiple different answers here. Corey, when you chat with your clients, what are some concerns that they talk about launching Copilot in their organization? Corey, you might be on mute.
Sorry, thank you. I think initially, I think it's practicality still. So licensing costs is a big one. If you have a 200-person firm, there's one cost. If you have a 10,000-person organization, it really does add up. So that's probably the biggest one to try to feel comfortable with it. Then from there, it really switches between oversharing and no official AI governance. So AI governance, even though it is what Copilot from 365 is, as I'll talk about in the next section, does have a little, it has its own AI governance internally. People are very nervous about what that means. And then oversharing is something that, you know, everyone has access. So that's probably, I would be licensing costs, and either A or E is probably what I would say. But let's see if I'm right.
All right, let's see.
Licensing cost was actually the lowest. That's interesting.
Wow.
That's great. More work. That is absolutely a cost concern for that I've heard most of. So that is amazing. Now, data protection rules, that's what I'll be talking about quite a bit next. All right. Great to hear. That's why we do this. We all learn. Okay. So now we're going to build on security. So Erin talked, and thank you, Erin, so much for joining us. I think what Erin talks about is the importance of security and how you have to address that. But the question is, what are the tools that Microsoft provides that the best ones that you already pay for with your licenses, do you have access to help answer those questions of data protection? So here we go. So data, these are the big buckets that we like to think about. So when we say readiness, security readiness, it doesn't mean that we have everything, it means that we're going to go into our clients and help them identify these issues, look at the tools they have to solve them, find out if they have the tools implemented and how to, maybe they have to move to the next level of those tools, if they have to up their licensing to E5 or something else, or if there's third-party tools that they're already utilizing. But the big buckets of data labeling, which is a lot of that data protection, content management, which is your life cycle, your organizational readiness, that has everything to do with your policies, your adoption, and who's managing it and running it moving forward. I'll stop there because I think one of the things that you should all recognize that if you're currently in part of your M365 team, or you work with those who manage and administrate the tenant, you'll know that over the last couple of years, every month, every 3 months, Microsoft releases new functionality and it gets rolled out. And people, sometimes some organizations hold back and don't let it roll out. And sometimes they let it roll out and people don't know how to use it or there's not adoption. Copilot for 365 is going to be like that. Microsoft is going to constantly release new features. For those of us that have been on it since the beginning, every time I open up Teams, I get a Teams update, it looks different. There's new features on saving prompts or finding the best ones or suggestions that weren't there before. And so, I have to constantly relearn the newer capabilities. And that's what Microsoft is doing in this first phase. Wait till they really start releasing the next round of features that they've announced. They could be game changers. So that organization readiness is part of that. And then the AI use case identification, which Jody talked about. I mean, all those, one thing I want to mention, everything that Jody was talking about, these are processes that already exist. These are processes that your organizations do, that Copilot, in the same ways Teams helped it out, and OneDrive helped it out, and SharePoint helped it out, and Power Platform helped it out. Copilot, additionally, is another add-on. So the way you should think about this is not, Copilot doesn't solve these problems. Copilot is a way to improve everything at different stages. And that's your use case. So those are the big things that we always talk about. I generally, as a rule, hate putting slides up that have a lot of text. So I hate this slide that I put together for you. I apologize. But because I included it, I left it in here because when we send out the deck or when you download the deck, you'll have access to it. So Microsoft released something called the Microsoft Graph Data Connect, MGDC. And what it is it's really kind of a low-cost add-on that connects in your Azure environment, your Azure tenant, to run reports and search through. Well, it has a lot of functions, but the relevant to the one that we're talking about today, it's able to run through your usage and security of your M365 content and produce reports for you, for us to identify the oversharing. This is really important. For one, there are other tools that, like ShareGate, we mentioned in someplace in the text in the second box, that ShareGate, where we use that a lot. And we've used a lot of migration tools that run reports and analyze data. Well, those have some issues with size and speed and performance. And also if we run PowerShell scripts, I have a whole team of people that are terrific at PowerShell scripts. They can't write this with the productivity. So what the MGDC does is actually have these pre-built reports. And in a lot of ways, they were designed for the readiness of M365. I want to be very clear. Oversharing, what the reports will show you and what we've used with our clients, it will identify what sites are shared with enterprise-wide people. It will identify content like that is saying this is potential content that may not be you want to share, but it doesn't know for sure if that is oversharing. One of the biggest challenges you have when you look at this is, I found these 100 sites that share with everyone. Is that a problem? What you have to recognize is today it's overshared. You can use search and find that content, and that's not an issue. That's something that already exists today. But what Copilot for 365 provides you and your users is a much easier way and a faster way to access that content. A user doesn't need to search for that content to find it. They may ask it a question that's more general, and M365 Copilot will find that content in this oversharing site and bring it back. Because Copilot Search does respect security and permissions. So if you personally don't have access to a site, that content can never be included in materials that you produce. So what the MGDC does is it gives you a repeatable, you can rerun these scripts every month, every week. Every organization has different needs, but it gives you the ability to go and identify content that is overshared that you want to lock down. And it's something that I think would have been great to have over the years as well, because it's been an ongoing problem. That's probably one of the most common tools we use in our readiness. So the other stuff is security. You've been through 365. There is always a life cycle of security, or there's a life cycle of deployment. We never deploy every functionality of M365. We help our clients over years keep adding on, and security is no different, especially when it comes to Copilot. So we kind of broke this up into three groups. Your baseline security, where it's just authentication. It's your baseline security that you have with your SharePoint permissions and your multi-factor authentication, etc. Most want to move into core. And core is when you're diving into a little bit more detail about security. Now, you'll wonder, why does conditional access matter to Copilot? Why does data loss prevention policies matter to Copilot? Now, I'm not going to go through every scenario, but here's an example with data loss prevention. Let's say, as Brian used as an example, he built a deck that someone might use. So what happens if you have access to a lot of content and you build your own materials and you have access to content that is supposedly locked down from other people, and you build a new deck, you build a new file based on content that you have access to, but somebody else doesn't have access to. So the combination of data loss prevention and your sensitivity labels, these work together. You have the ability that new file that's created inherits the security from the content you had. So if Bob didn't have access to that content, he's not going to have access to this new document you prevented or you developed. And then you want to email that document out with the DLP policies that you have in place with Purview, most likely, or some other third-party tool will recognize that as well. So all of Copilot, the way you want to think about this, and this is why you want to bring in security, Copilot itself respects the security that you already have in your environment. It doesn't have its own security. And that's actually a good thing, because that means you don't have to build a whole new Copilot security practice. Your security team, your CISO's practice, has their policies. They don't want this document or this content out. It's not going to get out with Copilot. Just the same, it's not going to get out with email. And while it may require you to be a little bit more diligent and may prioritize some of these things, these SharePoint controls, your endpoint controls, a little bit more because of the ease that Copilot brings you, you're using the same tools with the same capabilities and with the same knowledge internally that you have to build them. And if you don't have them in place already, well, then you probably should have, and this will help motivate you getting there forward. The best in class is one that we see, it goes a lot level. I mean, that's a full rollout of Purview capabilities, a lot of controls. You're removing content with policies. So this is something that is harder to get to, and rarely someone gets to everything with it. But it's a goal to set. I think most go with core with some best in class, and you just keep working towards that. So this is kind of think of it as a roadmap. All right, Copilot, we only got 10 minutes left, so I'll go pretty quick. So these are some common questions we get. I highlighted the ones in red that I think are really important, or that we get a lot from clients. They're all important. So concerns about overshared content. Well, we address that with the Microsoft Graph Data Connect tool. That's really important. We're not using sensitivity labels. So sensitivity labels, whether you're identifying PII or information protection or encryption, so it all is respected. So with Purview information protection, in your labels and in your policies, you have new functionality criteria that you can set up to say, do not use this in Copilot, or lock it down more. And so there's pros and cons with it, because it's all built on the same environment. So you have that knowledge. But let's say we see this problem. You want to protect and encrypt content from Copilot. Well, that also means any third-party tools that may leverage that content. How does it interact with those third-party applications, those third-party tools that you might use or sharing? So a lot of the work that we're doing with clients around purview and data protection as it relates to Copilot is less about turning on the policies, but more about what is the impacts on other systems and other applications. Or in other words, to turn on Copilot functionality in data protection is easy because it's a switch. To think through all the ramifications of that switch, that's what's time consuming and challenging. So be prepared for that. Old content, I jumped down to how M365 adopts. I think I already talked about this. It inherits all your existing policies. That's a really great thing. That's one of the benefits of using M365. And then I talked about data protection. So I guess I kind of talked about those items already. All right. I know we'll probably want to get to some questions. So real quickly, how do you get there? So Protiviti, we have a large global AI team, and we help clients at every stage. And I'm not going to go through these offerings in general, but I think the point of this slide is to show that, Brian and team focus on whether it's general AI, what's our organization's policy, which is box 1 or column 1, column 2, the evaluation and the readiness. Can we go through, look at oversharing? Can we do an evaluation of your security settings? Are these tools to help drive adoption? Can Microsoft fund some of these programs? The answer is yes. A lot of it too, we help a lot of our organizations leverage Microsoft funding for those. And then 3, the Copilot implementation is once you feel ready, let's go through and fix these security issues. Let's clean up their oversharing. Let's test all the endpoints and a number of other, and drive adoption. So wherever stage you're at, there are programs in place for those. This I'll skip. This is more detail of one of our readiness programs that dives into some of the security work. This is a larger one that drives around understanding how you can use Copilot, a detailed dive into the security, a gap analysis to say like what you have to do to meet your policies and move forward. All right. So with that, thank you for your time. That's my speaking time. I'm going to pass it back to Jody to talk about some next steps, and then we'll be open for a Q&A for as much time as we have left. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. So what comes next? Depending where you are as an organization in your Copilot journey, we would recommend reviewing your pain points, business challenges, et cetera, to identify where to get started and engage our healthcare team and experts for advice. Corey has such a strong team and is ready and willing and able to help. Determine the right user base for Copilot. I can't emphasize enough that you should look outside just your IT organization to pilot Copilot. Develop a plan for launch, adoption, training, usage, governance, security, and expansion. And a timeline is very important here too. And then get started easily with a readiness assessment where we can help you evaluate your organizational goals and how Copilot can help. Julia, turning it back over to you.
All right, and this is our final polling question before we get to your questions that you've inserted in the Q&A today. Would your organization be interested in a Copilot for Microsoft 365 readiness assessment? Protiviti's readiness assessment prepares and assesses your readiness to roll out Copilot for Microsoft 365 from a technical, business case, security, adoption, and administrative point of view. So we'll give you a few minutes to select your answer here. And while we're doing that, let's get to some questions. One question we did have was, does Copilot accept an audio document and summarize or provide prompted responses? For instance, from a risk assessment interview or walkthrough discussion from an audit team. Brian, would you like to take this one? Or Corey?
Sure. The way to utilize Copilot for this is to use the transcription function in Copilot, which will create a running transcript of the conversation. Afterwards, you can recap the meeting. You could add agenda or list action items. But where it becomes extremely powerful is it gives you a tool during the conversation to say, what is a follow-up question I could ask on this point, right? And so I think most people start with post-meeting doing analysis of the transcript, but kind of the next level of using Copilot is interacting with the transcript during the meeting to think through new things you can ask or follow or understanding reader sentiment during it. So transcript is the way Copilot handles it. If you only had an audio file, you would have to create you would have to get that transcribed into a text document, and then you could dump it to Word and ask questions on it as well. But transcription Copilot is the answer.
Great. Another question, we did get a question on the presentation slides and the recording. Those will be sent out to all attendees after today's webinar. Another question we got was, there is a strong return on engagement for implementing generative AI Copilot in healthcare. However, what is the return on financial investment, and what advice do you have for addressing ROI in a business plan to onboard Copilot?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one, but others might as well. This has been a conversation, a topic. What is the value? What's the ROI of SharePoint? We've been answering that question. Why do you want? What's the ROI of Teams? For an internal environment, an internal tool, it doesn't translate directly to revenue. So what does it return? It returns on time saving. So here's what I would argue. There are a lot of reports, there's a lot of statistics, and we can provide some, and you can get on the internet and find more. There's always going to be more of these. What I think Microsoft did so well, and is that they allow you to buy licenses for Copilot as needed, and then evaluate the usage of it by person. And we've done this here at Protiviti, the same. I think I started off earlier in this presentation talking about this. $30 a month, if I'm using Copilot, 4 or 5 times a week, I'm saving. The return on investment for me is I don't even know how much larger than $30 a month. What it allows the admins to do is look and see who's using Copilot, and more importantly, who's not using it. And so when you assign a license, and we do this here at Protiviti, when we assign a license to some people, and you see over 2 months they're not using it all, well, then there's no return on investment. So you can pull that license off them and give it to somebody else that is going to leverage it. And I think that is one of the power, versus in the past, you bought an M365 license, you bought a SharePoint license, everyone has it no matter what. This way now, you have the ability to control that and really focus on those users. And when people realize they lose Copilot if they don't get it, maybe that's a harsh thing, maybe your organization can't do it, but it worked here at Protiviti. If you're not using it, well, then somebody else can use that license. And I think that is a way to control it. The rest of it, how to really quantify that? Sure, as with everything else, a lot of surveys, a lot of questionnaires, and you find your power users and you can extrapolate data from that. But managing ROI, I think, is really powerful.
Great. Aaron, would you like to share what you guys have done at Blue Cross Blue Shield Association?
Specific for measuring value?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have been, of course, learning to love surveys. In order to really show the value in this, you have to kind of establish what your existing productivity baseline is, which is a really difficult thing to gather. So as we onboard people into any of our pilots, right, as we have been going through this, we ask them to fill out, a productivity baseline so that we have an understanding of kind of where they are, so that when we go back to them, right, after a few weeks and say, okay, how is Copilot helping you? That we have the ability to kind of do a cross compare and use that in order to build that business case.
Great. Thank you. So that brings us to the top of the hour. Thank you all for attending our webinar today. Thank you, Jody, Corey, Brian, and Aaron, for your insights. We hope you enjoyed the presentation and will attend more Protiviti webinars in the future. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.